February 5, 1999. It was a day the nation stood still. For 23 long years, the Philippines had turned its back on capital punishment. But on this day, the silence was broken. The man strapped to the gurney, the focus of a nation's divided gaze, was Leo Echegaray. He was about to become the first person to be executed by lethal injection under a newly reinstated law. His case, however, was far more than a simple matter of crime and punishment. It was a moment that forced an entire country to look into its soul and question the very nature of its justice system. What led to this historic, somber moment? And what does it tell us today about the complex relationship between law, morality, and mercy? The story begins not in the sterile chamber of an execution room, but on the streets of Manila. Leo Echegaray was a house painter, an ordinary man whose life would soon become a national symbol. He was accused and ultimately convicted of a crime that shocked the conscience: the repeated rape of his own 10-year-old stepdaughter. The trial court, acting under the authority of a controversial new law, Republic Act 7659, handed down the ultimate sentence: death. This law, often called the death penalty law, had been passed to revive capital punishment specifically for what the state defined as heinous crimes. For many, particularly advocates for victims, Echegaray's sentence felt like a long overdue sign that justice was finally being served. They saw it as a necessary and firm response to unspeakable cruelty. Yet for others, this very verdict marked the beginning of a profound moral crisis, a reckoning that would challenge the foundations of the nation's legal and ethical landscape. Naturally, a sentence of this magnitude could not go unchallenged. Leo Echegaray's case ascended through the judicial hierarchy, landing before the highest court in the land, the Supreme Court of the Philippines. His legal team mounted a powerful defense, arguing from a position of fundamental human rights. Their central claim was that the death penalty, in its very essence, violated the Constitution's sacred protection of life and human dignity. They contended that Republic Act 7659, the law that brought capital punishment back from the dead, was itself unconstitutional, an overreach of legislative power that infringed upon inalienable rights. The legal battle was intense, the arguments profound. However, in a landmark 1997 decision, the Supreme Court affirmed the death sentence. The majority ruled that Congress had acted within its constitutional authority when it restored the death penalty, provided it was reserved for those specifically defined heinous crimes. The legal path was now clear. The constitutionality of the death penalty was upheld, and the final barrier to Echegaray's execution had been removed. The Supreme Court's decision did not settle the matter in the court of public opinion. Instead, it ripped the nation in two. The verdict ignited a firestorm of debate that raged in homes, in churches, and on the streets. On one side stood a powerful coalition of voices pleading for restraint and compassion. The Catholic Church, a deeply influential institution in the Philippines, issued fervent appeals for mercy, arguing for the sanctity of all life, even that of a convicted criminal. Human rights organizations joined the chorus, decrying the sentence as a cruel, inhumane, and irreversible act that belonged to a less civilized past. They organized candlelight vigils and protests, their banners and voices calling for a halt to the execution. On the other side, the sentiment was just as strong. Victims' rights advocates and a significant portion of the public felt a sense of vindication. To them, the impending execution was not about vengeance, but about justice, a tangible, powerful statement that heinous acts would be met with the most serious consequences. For weeks, the Philippines was a nation torn, caught in a gut-wrenching struggle between the demand for justice and the call for mercy. Then came the day itself. On February 5, 1999, inside the walls of the National Bilibid prison, the final act of this national drama unfolded. Leo Echegaray was led to the execution chamber. The atmosphere was heavy with a tension that had gripped the country for months. Witnesses, officials, and journalists watched in solemn silence as he was prepared for the lethal injection. As the final moments ticked away, he was asked if he had any last words. His reported reply was simple, almost serene: "I'm going home to my father." Then, the chemicals began to flow. As the needle emptied and the life drained from his body, a profound silence filled the chamber. It was a silence that echoed far beyond the prison walls, signaling not just the end of one man's life, but the beginning of a new, unsettling era of state-sanctioned death. The 23-year moratorium was over. The death penalty was back. The case of people versus Echegaray is now etched into the annals of Philippine jurisprudence. It established a critical legal doctrine: that Congress possesses the constitutional power to impose the death penalty for heinous crimes, so long as those crimes are clearly defined and the application of the penalty is limited. The ruling clarified the boundaries of legislative power in the face of constitutional protections. Yet, the legacy of the Echegaray case extends far beyond the pages of law books. It serves as a haunting and powerful lesson that the path of the law and the path of morality are not always one and the same. It forces us to confront uncomfortable questions about the purpose of punishment and the limits of state power. The chapter that Leo Echegaray's execution opened did not remain open forever. Just 7 years later, in 2006, the Philippines once again abolished the death penalty, bringing a close to this turbulent period. This reversal itself speaks volumes about the nation's ongoing struggle with the ultimate punishment. Looking back, the story of Leo Echegaray is more than just a legal case study. It's a profound human story that continues to resonate. It serves as a critical reminder, not just for law students but for every citizen, of the immense power wielded by the law. The law can take a life, as it did on that day in 1999, but it cannot, by itself, heal the deep wounds of a victim, a family, or a society. It cannot restore what was lost or erase the pain. The true pursuit of justice, as this case so starkly illustrates, must always involve asking a deeper question. We must look beyond what is merely legal and strive to understand what is truly right, what is just, and what is humane. Thank you for joining us on this journey into a pivotal moment in legal history. If this story moved you or made you think, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel for more deep dives into the cases that shape our world.